We are live. So, hi, hello, good evening. I think it's just take a few seconds for YouTube to notify people that we are live. So,
Live. Yeah.
hi, guys. Please, once you join, just say hello and just so I know that you can hear me and you can see me. Good evening. Please, can you just say hello to me?
Me.
Okay. Hello, good evening. Hello, Richard. Hello, Franklin. Good evening. Can you guys hear me? Can you see me? Can you hear me? Okay, you can hear me. Hi, guys. Good evening. How you all doing? Good evening, guys. Welcome to today's live stream. Okay, Miss Teach. Loud and clear, Franklin. Thank you so much. Yeah, we are good to go. Good. Good evening, everybody. How you guys doing? How has your week been? I feel like this week ran by very, very fast. It's Thursday already, and the February is ending tomorrow, right? Yeah. Tomorrow is the last day of February. Like, it's crazy. How you guys doing? How are you enjoying the new weather? The UK weather is changing gradually, and I think I'm loving it. I think I'm happier now compared to the dark days.
More
So
sun.
I'm good. Welcome, guys. Okay, I can see that we have over 70 people here, so I think we're good to go. Yeah, it's still cold, but I think there's a little bit of sunshine here and there, and it's better than the dark days, so I would take that. Okay, guys, so today we're talking about buying houses in the UK, okay? Of course, a lot of us have moved from Nigeria, Ghana, India, wherever, and now we're in the UK. And we have to progress despite all the limitations that comes with our visas, all the restrictions and everything. And there's a lot of myth going on around buying houses, getting mortgages for visa holders, for migrants, and all of that. So we are just here. I had to bring a professional to answer all your burning questions that you're going to have about buying a house, getting a mortgage. Like, guys, it's time for us to start buying as much houses as we can in the UK, right? Remember the last video, somebody told us that they should stop allowing migrants to buy. I think I reacted to that video, right? Where somebody was saying they should stop allowing migrants to buy a house in the UK. And I was like, what? Why would you even say that? Do you know how hard we work? Do you know all the restrictions we face? Do you know how tight it is for us to, buy a house and then we still do everything, save up our deposit, and you're saying, like, how are we even stopping you from buying a house, So it's time for all of us to become homeowners in the UK, right? So get all your questions, your pen and paper, and this is free consultation. I'm bringing you consultations that people pay for. I'm bringing it for free here for you guys because I got you. We're all going to make it. This is our money year, our year. A good year for us also. It's serious business. If you've ever thought about owning a house in the UK and you don't know how to go about it, or you're worried about your visa condition, you're worried about your salary, you're worried about the condition of your spouse, maybe they are doing part-time work or they don't even have a job at all, whatever it is that you think might stop you from getting a mortgage as soon as possible, we're here for you, to answer those questions. I had to bring a professional because I can only share my experience in this field, but a professional will answer your questions professionally and, give you direct you and show you exactly what to do. Right. So just start dropping your questions already. We've started. We're not wasting time. So I'm going to let my guest, of course, you guys can already see him. So I'll just let him introduce himself briefly and then we can just go straight into it.
Perfect. Thank you, Tochi. Hello, everyone. So just as context, what we actually specialize in doing at First Time Finance is helping people that have migrated over to the UK in the last 5 years or so to buy their first home here. We also then go on to help our clients to buy more property in the UK. So Tochi very rightly mentioned, and having done so yourself as well, kind of getting that first home, going out and buying more property is a great way to build wealth in the UK, and it's very much possible to do as well. And buying your first home, in my opinion, is the perfect starting point. And I'm sure we'll get more into that. I do get lots of questions quite commonly. Shall I buy an investment first? Shall I buy a home first? I do think buying your first home has many, many advantages. And then you can go on to investments. And of course, if you've got questions about that, then feel free to put them in the chat. And I'm going to answer lots of different questions, I'm sure.
Okay, thank you so much, Ripley. Thank you for agreeing to do this. We appreciate you. Right. Now, firstly, let me ask this in fact, all questions are important, but let's just start from here. How long how long do you have to be in the UK to be able to buy a house? Because we know that a lot of people have different things to say about that. Some people say you have to get ILR, you have to get British citizenship, you have to stay for 3 years, you have to stay for, but now that you're here, please tell us, officially, how long do you have to stay in the UK to be able to get a mortgage?
That's the burning question that everyone wants to know. And unfortunately, I think quite a lot of the information out there is wrong, and it's wrong in a good way. And I tell you why. And that's because quite commonly people get told that you need to have lived here for 3 years, 5 years. It's not true. There are actually some lenders in the market that can lend to people if they've been living here for 6 months. Now, the pool of lenders that you can actually access is a lot smaller, but that's fine. It's not an issue because some of those lenders are really cheap. They're lenders that have cheap interest rates, so it's not like you're paying more to access them necessarily. So I'd say, to answer your question clearly, if you've lived in the UK for at least 12 months and you could use a 10% deposit, there are some really, really good, very cheap lending options that would be very, very similar to if you had indefinite leave to remain or a British passport, for example. Moving on from that, if you've lived in the UK for more than 2 years and you've got a 5% deposit, then there are quite a few different lending options that we can go to as well. The interest rates are more expensive, and that's because you're using a lower deposit amount, but there are still lending options available, right? It's possible to buy. And it's not always about getting the best thing from day one, right? So for example, with a 5% deposit, you'll pay a lot more in interest as opposed to the 10% deposit. But if it gets you onto the property ladder, it gets you away from paying rent. And then in the future, you can scale up your equity to then reduce the interest rates. That can be a good thing as well.
Okay. So the thing I got from here is just start as soon as you can. Okay.
Yeah. And get the right advice.
Yeah. Start saving up your money as soon as you can. And people are already asking questions here. But Ripley, I want to ask, because you hear there's a lot of debates, even from professionals. You hear people saying, don't get a mortgage, you're going to be in debt, it's better to keep renting. I don't know. There's just been a lot of things going on around buying a house and getting a mortgage. People say you're going to be in debt forever. And then somebody says keep renting. Even though I know the answer already, but I want to hear from you, from your point of view. What do you think about getting a mortgage?
So
Do you
one of
think
the
it's
reasons,
the right thing to do?
Yeah, so personally, for a lot of people, I do think it's the right thing to do. I do think buying your own home is a long-term decision. And I'll go back to what I said about in terms of buying your first home is a good thing to start with, because in my opinion, it's one of the best retirement plans there is. And this is for the pure example of if you were to, so person A rents their whole life, right? So they continue to pay rent for 30 years until they're 60 years old. Person B buys a property, pays down their mortgage, and then in 30 years, they don't have a mortgage. Person A, when they're 60, will still have to pay their rent. And what does rent do? It continues to go up. As you would have seen over the last few years, and anyone in the chat or who's watching today has been renting, it's extremely expensive and it just keeps going up and up. Person B, on the other hand, who's paid off their mortgage, would then have nothing left to pay for their house, right? They own it outright. There's no debt on it. You just have to pay your utility bills and council tax. Don't get me started on council tax. But you see my point, right? Eventually get to the stage where you don't have to pay anything for where you live. Now, for some of our clients, their longer term plans are to go back to their home country. So it might be, for a lot of our clients are Nigerian nationals, for example. So they might have plans to go back to Nigeria. Even in that instance, you could then sell that asset, that property, and then use that money, right? So you've got to think, no matter what you're planning to do, building up that equity has a massive, massive effect, whether it's making sure that you don't have a monthly payment or just building up an asset and lots of equity within that. So yeah, I think it's a very, very good thing to do.
I think so too, because you're paying rent, the money is just going like that.
Going.
But
Exactly.
when you're paying your mortgage, you're paying yourself literally, like, and then your equity keeps going up, you know. So if you intend to eventually sell the property, you're going to get something from it, because houses appreciate, right? So
exactly,
you on like on a there's a high chance of you selling your property way more than you bought it, and it's quite good. Now, Ripley, how much? Let's talk money, because we can't talk about getting mortgage without talking about money. Realistically, how much? What's the financial requirement now, like salary wise? How much are we supposed to earn to be qualified to get a mortgage?
Yeah, really, it just depends on the property value that you want to buy and the mortgage amount that you need. So as a rough rule, and this is really kind of basic level because there are other things that come into these calculations, but as a rough guide, most lenders will give you 4.5 times the amount of your gross household income. So I'll break that down because it can be quite complex. A gross household income means the amount of income you earn before tax. So let's say you've got a husband and wife, they're both earning £30,000 per year. Well, the total income would be £60,000. By the way, that can include things like overtime as well. We can use, there are different elements of income that we can use. If you times £60,000 by 4.5, that would give you a maximum mortgage amount of £270,000. If you could then use £30,000 as your deposit, that would enable you to buy a property worth £300,000 with a 10% deposit. And that would be completely doable for people in that situation who don't have loads of credit commitments, for example.
Okay, so what if the husband is earning, maybe somebody is, for instance, on a care worker visa, someone is earning about £26,000, and then the husband is earning, let's say, £30,000.
Yeah.
Can they get a mortgage on that salary?
Yeah, so it wouldn't fall much shorter than that. So still 4.5 times the joint income there, which is £56,000 joint household income, would be 252,000 as a maximum mortgage. Of course, again, it depends on credit commitments and things like that, but generally speaking, that's how much they would be able to get. So it's still a good budget. If you're looking at average house prices, it's around there in the UK. So of course, it depends where you live, right? If you're in London or around London, or specifically the southeast, it's a lot more expensive. But pretty much anywhere else in the UK, that's quite a good budget for a family house.
Okay. Somebody just asked, what about single parents without a husband?
Yeah, it's a lot more difficult, I'll be honest. And I have a lot of single parents as clients. It's something that brings me a lot of satisfaction in helping as well, because it's a lot more difficult, right? And if, again, it depends on what they're earning, but if it's a single parent, let's say, and they're earning £30,000 in total with, let's say, the extras like overtime or anything they might do, if that's possible as a single parent, of course, times by 4.5 would be a maximum loan of about 135,000. So for a lot of places, you might not be able to buy a property for that. It depends where you live. But then you could potentially look at some schemes, for example. So one example of that would be shared ownership. So shared ownership can actually help you to increase the value of the property that you can actually buy. However, you'd only be buying a percentage of that. So let's say if they didn't use shared ownership, they could buy a property, we're saying £135,000 as a maximum mortgage. If they used shared ownership, I would expect that potentially to go up to a total property value of 200 or maybe 225, but they would only be buying 50% of that. The benefit of that is they get to buy a property that's worth more, meaning there should be more space. So it might be better for, let's say, the single parent and the young family. And also they can then staircase the ownership over the time. So staircase means increasing the ownership. So with shared ownership, you basically would buy 25 or 50% of the property value. The other part, you're then still paying rent on, but the rent is generally charged at a lower amount than the market rate. So it's still quite good. And then over time, if your income increases or if someone else comes onto the mortgage with you, you could then increase that ownership over time.
Yeah, so Deborah, he already answered the question that you can buy a house as a single parent, but it's more difficult, okay, but you can buy.
You can,
so, yeah. Deborah is saying that the salary is around 30 to 32K per annum. Yeah.
It's around what I used in my example, potentially somewhere between 135 to 145,000 you could borrow. Some lenders can go a bit higher than that. So again, if you've got some deposit together, etc., it's worth obviously speaking with a mortgage advisor. Obviously, you know potentially who I am and our company, and we're of course more than happy to help.
Yeah, so all their details will be in the description of this video. So just click on it and speak to them, okay? So Ripley, what visa type are we looking at? Because we know that people came into the UK through different kinds of visa routes. So can somebody on study visa, post-study work visa, global talent, and the rest? What kind of visa exactly are we looking at that allows people start looking at getting a mortgage in the UK?
I'll answer this one very simply. So if you have a 10% or more deposit, pretty much any visa type is fine. So, and that's basically meaning if you're on a dependent visa, there's a lender that can do it. If you're on a student visa, there's a lender that can do it. Global talent, tier 2, whatever it may be, there's lenders that can do it with a 10% or more deposit. The only issues we get is if you're using less than 10%. So if you're using a 5% of the property value deposit, then the lenders are a lot more strict on which visa types we can use. And normally those will only be tier 1, so you've got global talent, you've got tier 2, skilled worker or health and social care. Potentially spousal / dependent visas as well can be fine. But normally the lender wants the skilled worker, the main applicant on that skilled worker visa, to be on there. So 10% plus deposit, pretty much any visa is fine. The only issue we can get is with refugee visas. All lenders pretty much need 25% deposit unless they have indefinite leave to remain. But apart from that, it's pretty much any visa can be fine.
So considering that the study visa is a temporary visa, can one on the study visa consider getting a mortgage?
Student visa can happen, yeah. So there are lenders that, as long as there is like a route to staying in the country, essentially, so it doesn't have to be like on the skilled worker, you've got a 5-year route to getting indefinite leave to remain, but it can be possible to use, yeah.
Okay. Let's pick some questions here. I think there are lots of them.
There are lots.
So let me just scroll up and see if I can find the first.
Yeah, I think.
Okay, somebody said, I'm actually scared of buying a house in the UK due to damp.
Yeah. So that's a valid concern to have. So damp. And I'm not sure whether you're asking about a specific property or just the whole of the UK, because it maybe rains a lot, which is, again, quite valid. It does rain a lot. But if it's a specific property that you're worried about because you've got concerns it might have damp, it's definitely valid, right? So you want to be careful. If you're going through the process, you want to make sure you get a survey done, and potentially a specialist survey for damp, because damp can be an issue that can be quite costly to fix. Not always, but it can be an issue. For those that don't know what damp is, it's essentially kind of condensation build up within the property. There's not enough airflow and so on. But yeah, a valid concern to have. So can you buy? Do you want to? Sorry, can you buy if you don't have a job and no good credit? So you can't get a mortgage if you don't have a job. So you need an income, a provable income, to get a mortgage. Self-employed applicants can get a mortgage even on a visa. So, for example, I did a mortgage about 2 weeks ago for a limited company director. He's on a visa in the UK on a dependent visa. Wife is on the skilled worker visa, and we've used his income alongside hers. So you don't have to have a job, you need an income, but then it needs to be an actual provable income to get a mortgage. So for the majority of people, you need an employed job. Yeah.
Can one who doesn't work up north get a first home mortgage up north with good rates?
So in short, no, but it does depend on your job. So essentially, if you're, and it depends on what you're looking to do with the property. So if you're looking to buy this as a property to live in, which is where you can use deposits like 5 or 10%, to be very clear. Whereas when you're buying it as an investment, typically the minimum deposit with those are 20 to 25%, depending on the lender. So if you're looking to use it as a buy-to-let property, you need a much larger deposit, just to make that very clear. If it was an investment and you had a larger deposit, yes, you could buy a property up north to rent out to someone whilst not living in the north. If you're looking to buy it with a smaller deposit, a 10% deposit, that is a residential mortgage, and that is where you would need to live in the property. So the only way of doing that would be if you lived up north or had the ability to move up there whilst keeping your job. So if you worked remotely, for example, that would be a way of doing it.
Okay.
Yeah.
The next one.
Okay. Can someone on an IVA get a mortgage to buy a house? It is possible. The only issue we get with things like an IVA is where you've got a visa as well, and also there's the IVA there. Pretty much all lenders are going to decline unless you have a 25% deposit, and then it becomes possible. If you don't have a visa, so let's say you've got indefinite leave to remain, British passport, whatever, it can be possible with a little bit less deposit, maybe 15 or 20%, but there's lots of circumstances and factors involved.
Okay, the next one.
So what is the minimum percentage required for deposit? So to start with that, 5%. So if you're buying it to live in it, 5%, but ideally you want to use 10%. The interest rates are cheaper. If you're buying it as an investment, so to rent out, 20 or 25%. Does your deposit amount affect your interest rate? Yes. So it's one of the only things that does, to be honest. So if you put in 5% deposit, more expensive rates, you get to 10%, they get better. You get to 15%, the interest rates get a little bit better. So you'll notice it works in 5% increments that you go up. Just to give you a quick example, if you were to use 7.5% deposit, you would get the same interest rate as if you put 5% deposit. So you have to get up to 10%. Number 3 is, do you support people to buy new or old builds? Both. So a lot of our clients do buy new builds, but we also do a lot of old build properties as well.
Okay.
Good questions. Another agent, I was told, need to live. Yeah, so it's incorrect. Again, it depends on deposit size. If you're using a 5% deposit, there is still a lender that can do it with a 5, or 2 lenders actually that can do it with less than 2 years in the UK. It depends on how long's left on your visa, the visa type. There's lots involved, but as a statement, that is not true. It depends on your circumstances, but yeah, not true. What do you think about people that pay their mortgage deposit with a credit card? It's not acceptable to any lenders, basically. So I've never seen that actually happen and that work. It's not something you want to do anyway. By the way, a credit card is extremely expensive way of borrowing money. you could get yourself into some serious financial issues by doing that. So I definitely wouldn't want to go down that route. And lenders just won't accept that. So you'd need to have savings as a deposit or get a gift from an immediate family member. But savings is the best way.
Okay.
If you don't get an approval, how long before you try again? It depends on the reason for the decline. If it's a credit score thing, we would want to look at other lenders. So quite commonly, most mortgage advisors will look at like one or two cheaper lending options for applicants on a visa for people that migrated over to the UK, but then they won't consider, if those don't accept, the other options that are available. And there are other options that are available that are easier to pass the credit check. So it depends if you've gone to them or not. If all the options have declined, then a couple of months probably might be enough time for your credit score to improve, 2 to 6 months, depending. So can someone on a post...
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. Yeah, I'll read it. Sure, fine. Can someone on post-study visa get a mortgage in the UK? So yes, it's possible to do that. So graduate visa, post-study visa is completely fine. Most lenders will want a 10% deposit for that, though. So we'll do the next question, which is, can someone sell off his property back home and make payment once to buy a house over here, or must you go through mortgage? Yeah, so if you've got a property back home that's worth enough to then just buy the house outright in cash, yeah, you can do that. You just need to prove the source of funds. So something you'll get to know whether you take a mortgage or not. Proving the source of your funds, meaning where has the money come from, is very, very important. So you would need to make sure that when you're selling the property, you're getting the documentation that proves that, getting the money into preferably your bank account back home, and then sending it directly over to the UK. I would avoid using, let's say, if you were going to send someone pounds who then sends you naira, etc. I'd avoid using that arrangement and use a money transfer company that can actually send it across, because then the money stays in your name and it's easy to prove. But yes, yeah, it's possible to do that. You don't have to get a mortgage.
Okay.
So what about both salary around 45,000? So I'm presuming you mean the total income is 45,000. Let me know if that's incorrect. But if both is 45,000, potentially could borrow around £200,000. It could be higher than that. Again, it depends. There's other factors that come into the calculation, but it'd be around there. So what age limit to get a house through mortgage? Presuming you mean oldest age is normally up to age 70 at the end of the mortgage term, although sometimes we can stretch it further, but that depends on your circumstances and what you do for work. So if you are 50 years old, sometimes even 55 years old, it's possible for us to get a mortgage. Of course, the older you are when we initially apply, the lower the affordability will be. And that's because the mortgage term length is shorter, which then makes the payments higher because you're paying the mortgage back over a shorter amount of time. But yeah, there's no real age limit. It's just depending on affordability.
Okay. I think we've answered this question before, but
Yeah. So can a credit card be used to complete a deposit payment? Yeah, we have. We've answered that one before. So no.
we've answered this one too.
Okay. Can someone on post-study visa? Yeah. So we have answered that. So yes, they can. Again, 10% deposit ideally. So we've done that. Next one would be, please can you do remortgage? So I'll interpret the question here a bit. So if you're asking us as a company, do we do remortgages? Yes, we do. We do help people to remortgage their properties. It's a very important thing to keep the cheapest interest rate. yeah, I think that's the only. If you've got a further question about it, let me know. IVA.
We've answered this one already.
Answered that, yeah.
Talks
Remortgage,
about
answered
the
that.
mortgage.
I'm
Yeah.
49. So Humphreys said, I'm 49. What are my prospects? So yeah, definitely there's good options available to be able to buy your first home. As long as you're planning on retiring, let's say we could say the anticipated retirement age is up to 70. That is what most lenders will accept. Then we could use a 20-year mortgage term because it takes you and will finish just before you're 70. So that wouldn't affect the monthly payments too much. So yeah, it's definitely possible. It would depend on your income, if you've got a deposit, and so on. I'm self-employed. What's the criteria to get a deposit? So if you're self-employed, I mean, there are actually about 2 different lenders we can access whilst being on a visa. One, you could use a 5% deposit. The other, you could use 10% deposit, and they'll be cheaper. You will need 2 years worth of self-employment figures though for those lenders, just due to being on a visa. If you had indefinite leave to remain, it is possible to do it with 1 year's accounts, but the amount of lenders you can do it with is a lot smaller. So I'd say you need 2 years self-employed figures to do it.
Okay.
So what happens if someone loses his job after some time? So yeah, this is actually it's a good point, and it needs to be considered. Obviously, stability and making sure that you're going to be able to pay the mortgage payments. So it's a difficult question to answer because ultimately the monthly payments of the mortgage would continue, right? You'd still need to pay your mortgage just as you would if you were renting anyway. If you couldn't pay your mortgage for a long period of time, then ultimately the bank could come back and eventually take the property back to get their money back. It does take a long time to get to that in reality, and they do have to try work with you. But yeah, which one is better between private lenders and banks? I'm not 100% sure what you mean by private lenders. So if you're talking about, I don't know, people that could lend you money, I would definitely say banks. And yeah, when I say the word lender, quite often I'm talking about a bank. Sometimes I'm talking about a building society. So like Nationwide or a building society, technically not a bank. So I say lenders. But yeah, you want to use a large lending institution. The best way of finding the best one for you is through a mortgage broker because they've got access to lots of different options. Can you be in Nigeria and buy a house in the UK? Yes, it is actually possible to buy property in the UK whilst being an international resident. If you need a mortgage, it's a lot more difficult. Again, it depends where you're located. With being in Nigeria, the mortgage options are very limited. So if you wanted to buy a house in the UK with cash, completely possible to do. Yeah. Please, Tochi, I'll ask you this one. Please, Tochi, how can we get his contact?
Details in the description. Just click on the description of this video, and that's it. Just tell him you're from me, okay? So that he will attend to you immediately.
Exactly. I'll get extra good service. Right. So, hi, I have an income up to 20k as self-employed and some income from tax credits. Can it be used as combined earnings? And also, can I add my son's earnings as he is having some earnings from self-employed? So to all of that, basically, yes, it can be possible depending on your situation. Depends how old your son is as well. The minimum age to buy a property legally is 18. You can't be any younger, so it depends what age your son is. But yeah, self-employed can be used. Would potentially need 2 years figures again for both of you. Next question is, please, if a lender's valuer says the value of the property is £200,000 and not 210,000, does the developer have the right to reject the valuer's report? Yes, ultimately they're allowed to sell the property for what they want to try and sell it for. I've interestingly had an instance of this very recently. It's actually very rare, by the way. We don't see this much. Quite often properties are valued quite well by both developers and estate agents. It gives you the opportunity to go back to them and say, look, there's evidence here that the property's worth 200, not 210. They might and most likely will ask you to go and try a different lender to see if another lender brings back the same valuation of the property. What is the average cost of a 4-bedroom newly built house? The only answer to that is it depends on the location, because in somewhere, I'm going to try pull a location up my head, Nottingham or let's say Manchester or something like that, it's going to be 250,000, or well, Manchester will be more expensive, but £250,000 one place is going to be £500,000 somewhere else, right, in Oxford or London or wherever it might be.
Yeah, sorry if I'm going to add to that. It's very easy to find. Just go on Rightmove or Zoopla on the market. Just check, and you get your answer there. So you have an idea.
Very good to use. Rightmove, Zoopla, very good and easy to use. What interest rates are likely to be offered to someone on a skilled worker visa? I can give you a rough range. We're not really to groups of people, we're not really meant to share too much specific around the specific interest rate you can get, because ultimately I can't say to each and every one of you, without speaking to you and knowing your circumstances, exactly what interest rate you can get. Yeah. As a rough range, if you had a 10% deposit, then you would be able to get an interest rate of somewhere between 4.7% up to 5.5%, depending on your situation, depending on lots of different factors.
What's the official interest rate right now as we speak?
So the official Bank of England base rate is 4.5%, but interest rates normally sit a small percentage above that. So those interest rates that I've just mentioned are basically what anyone else in the market could achieve anyway. So it's not really any much different for skilled worker visa holders. Can I please suggest some lenders with good interest rates? Again, this is a very situation dependent thing. What I can say is the biggest banks in the UK typically tend to have some of the cheapest interest rates. And that's just because they're really big institutions. They've got a lot of funding. They can afford to do it cheaper. It's not always the case, though. There are lots of these small lenders who are still good and they're completely fine to have a mortgage with, that sometimes come in with cheaper rates. Again, another important thing would be, if you went direct to a bank to get your mortgage, the day you submit your application, that is the interest rate you get. With someone like myself, what we do is, as you go through the process of buying a house, as Tochi will very well know, it takes months, months to do. We would continue to reduce the interest rate as we go through, if interest rates come down, and that can save a lot of money. So I'd say it's best to work with a broker who's going to get what's best for you. Okay. What are the steps to take if someone had a mortgage offer and didn't see an apartment before the due date on the mortgage offer? Let's say someone had a mortgage offer but didn't see an apartment. Okay. So I think you're referring to an agreement in principle rather than a full mortgage offer, because to get a full mortgage offer, you need an apartment or a house to secure it against. So for us to go and get the mortgage offer, you have to have found a property. But the agreement in principle, or the mortgage in principle, is something you would do before finding somewhere. And normally those are valid for 3 months. I always say to clients, though, it doesn't really matter the validity date. And that's because if you have an agreement in principle, when we go and do the full application, once you found a property, we have to redo the agreement in principle part anyway. So it doesn't matter too much. So I wouldn't worry if that 3 months has passed. You're probably still fine, and the credit check is passed.
Okay.
Are you able to get 95% LTV for shared ownership at 40% of a 160k home? Yes. Yeah, it's completely possible to do, even if you're on a visa. So normally not any issues with that. Again, depends on your circumstances, affordability, and so on.
Yeah, sorry. So this is in the description as well, but just click on it and it will take you directly to speak with them. Okay. So we have lots of questions. Like there are lots right now, but good. Let's see how fast and
I'll try and get through.
We can take. Yeah.
I'm very, very, very glad we got lots of questions. So can you differentiate between a leasehold and a freehold property? Also, what are the dangers of buying a leasehold property as against a freehold property? So to explain it clearly, a leasehold property, you're essentially leasing the actual property above the land, right? So a leasehold typically is an apartment or a flat. And the reason they do it as a leasehold in law is because it's difficult to say that you actually own the land when there are multiple flats built upon that same bit of land, right? So they segment it into these little boxes, which are the apartments or the flats, and they call it a lease. So you're technically leasing it. A freehold property, so it's a house, you're buying the land and then you're buying the property on top of it. Um, it's difficult to say kind of what's better, but I guess dangers of buying a leasehold, firstly, is the lease length. So if you buy a leasehold property and the lease is low, and let's say that's below 100 years, we would consider to be low. If that expires, the property would technically go back to the freeholder, right? So you would lose the property. In reality, you can actually extend the lease, but it does cost money. So that's one of the issues or dangers. Another one would be service charge and ground rent. So those can be quite a big additional cost with leasehold properties, and you don't get that with a freehold. So those would be the considerations.
Okay.
What are the requirements for buying a house outrightly without a mortgage? Well, there's not really. You kind of need the money. Obviously, you need the money to do it, and you need to be able to prove to a solicitor where that money's come from. They have to sign off that they're happy with the proof of funds. That would pretty much be it, basically. Please, can you speak about new versus old house, advantages, disadvantages? Yeah, it is very personal preference based, by the way. So it depends what you're looking for. A lot of new build properties will have smaller rooms. So quite a common thing that comes up when I'm speaking with clients is, oh, the new build properties have smaller rooms. And they typically do. So if you're looking for a spacious property, quite commonly older houses will have those more spacious rooms. With an old house, it's old, it might require some work. With a new house, you're getting it brand new, everything looks good, you shouldn't need to do any work to it. New properties are more expensive, older properties are cheaper. So there's lots of different factors here. There is actually, I have actually made videos before on this, on like my YouTube and stuff to do with new build versus old build. It's all very similar responses in terms of personal preference, really. Does a newly built house insured, especially against damp? So you get a 10-year warranty with a new build purchase. That would cover you. I mean, I'm not a warranty expert, so I can't say exactly what it covers you for, but it covers you for a lot of things, especially if, let's say, you had an issue with the property that shouldn't happen. So if it's newly built, right, so everything should work completely fine. If there was an issue, it would come under that warranty. Can you use an equity in a buy-to-let as deposit when converting to residential? Yeah, so if you're wanting to keep your buy-to-let, if there's equity in it, we could remortgage to get that equity out, and then you could buy a residential, or you could sell the buy-to-let and then use the leftover equity to buy the residential. So yes, that is possible. Can I do a mortgage alone with a salary of 30k, or do I have to add my husband's earnings? Yes, you can get a mortgage for 30,000. As I mentioned earlier, you'd get a loan of about, potentially, depending on other factors, £135,000, somewhere around there. So it depends what you need. If you need more than that, you might need to add your husband's earnings in as well. Assuming a property worth £250,000 and I got the mortgage, how much approximately are we looking for monthly repayments? Okay, again, this is going to be a really rough estimate, so it depends on deposit amount and so many other factors. But if we speculate that you're going to use a 10% deposit, then your mortgage amount would be £225,000. If you were to use a 30-year mortgage term, and the interest rate was, let's say, 4.75%, your monthly payments would be £1,174 per month. There are some, interesting calculators you can play around with online. But if you are thinking about buying a property and you're getting close to the stage where you've got your deposit together, again, best to speak with a mortgage broker / advisor who can do those calculations for you.
Yeah, so if you need to still speak with him, like I said, his details is in the description of this video, okay? For everyone looking for a mortgage advisor, you want to speak with him, please just click on it right now or after the video. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. We're of course very, very happy to help. It's what we specialize in doing, particularly if you've moved over to the UK. If you want to have a look at some of our client results as well, you can check us out on Trustpilot, and also on my Instagram, I share a lot of that as well. So can I alone do a mortgage on a 36k NHS salary? Yes, you can. And also what I'd add, a lot of my clients are NHS as well. All the add-ons that you get, the weekends, the nights, overtime, we can use those as well. So sometimes a client will say to me, I'm earning 36,000, because it will say your basic's 36, but when we add in the other parts, it's actually more than they initially think. So that can help too. Does your company cover? Yes, we do. So we work with clients from the southeast all the way up to even Scotland. I have some clients in Scotland, Wales, and covering all of England as well. So yes. Hello, I'm late to this live. Would I, as an American, be able to purchase a home in the UK without having British citizenship? Yes, you can. Even if you're living in the US, you can. If you're living in the UK, which it seems like you are, yes, you can. But brand new leases, especially flats, depreciate quickly. Brand new leases are normally somewhere between 250 to 999 years, to be honest. So depends how long you're planning on living or passing the property down, I guess. But yeah, they're normally fine. It's if you're buying a property with less than a 100-year lease, that might be something to think about.
Okay, I think these are all the questions for now. So guys, just feel free to drop your questions. We've taken all the ones that I've asked and we've answered everything already. So while we wait for more questions, can I ask, what do you think about getting an investment property first before a residential property?
I guess it depends, again, on the person's circumstances. I do think more generally that buying your first home is better. So if you buy an investment, and again, it depends on the person, you're typically tying down a higher percentage of capital. So as the deposit, you would need 20 or 25% of the property value to do that, versus 5 or 10%. You would still be renting, presumably, to live where you live. So it's just, I do think getting away from renting, getting into your own home, starting to build up equity that way is better in that sense. Also, there are tax advantages to owning your own home versus as a buy-to-let investment. I'm not a tax advisor, but things like capital gains tax, etc., are very different and stamp duty when you're buying a home versus an investment. So I think both have their place, but for a lot of people, buying your own home can be a very good way of starting.
Okay. I'm seeing some people saying we're just coming. So don't worry, if you're just coming, this video is going to be on YouTube for you to rewatch. Okay, so you get everything that we have said. Because I'm seeing that some people are still asking us questions that we've already answered. So This video is here. Just once after this live, just click on it and rewatch. And how you can reach him, the details are in the description box. On the screen, there's also a link you can just use to book a call with him directly. And yeah, just reach him at any time and he's here to answer. We have more questions.
Yeah.
Can I qualify? I'm on a work visa. We've answered that already.
Yes, you can. Can you get a mortgage without having a credit card? So yeah, I guess that question's more towards the credit profile, like if you've built up a big enough credit profile. So yeah, it's possible. So you don't have to have a perfect credit profile to get a mortgage. So yeah.
Yeah, talking about credit cards now, credit histories, how would you advise someone to build a credit score?
That's a good question. It can be difficult because different things work, but definitely at a basic level, using a bit of credit and it's very important to say a bit. So you don't want to go get 4 or 5 different credit cards. If you're going to do it, just get one, use it a little bit. If your credit limit is £1,000, don't go using £1,000, just use a £100 or £200 and then pay it off in full at the end of each month. So don't mess around with leaving kind of balances here and there. Just use a little bit, pay it off in full. That just shows that you can use credit. Very importantly, you're not missing any payments, right? Because if you miss any payments, that can be an issue. Another thing I would mention is just when you're moving property, be very careful about moving over things like your utility bills, because quite commonly we see if someone hasn't moved that over properly and they try to take a payment, they might register that as a missed payment. So can someone who is on a £24,000 annual salary in the NHS get a mortgage? So yes, they can. And again, I would say the same thing about the NHS income. So if it's 24,000, there might be some extras, some overtime. Maybe you do bank work as well that we could use. If it was just the 24,000 that's the income, it's still possible. Just the maximum loan is going to be somewhere around £108,000, depending on a few other factors to do with affordability. So the link that Tochi's put in is a good way of booking a call in. That link at the moment is for people that are ready to buy really in the next kind of 3 to 6 months, as I'm the main advisor. If you wanted to just get in touch, ask some questions, whatever it may be, I think Tochi will leave potentially my email address or my Instagram. So you can just reach out on there. I'll always answer questions and help in any way I can. Do you also assist to look for the property? So we don't take control of the process of finding the property, but we do guide our clients through the process. So when you become a client of ours, what we do is set up a WhatsApp group chat. So that would be with, let's say, yourself and your wife, or the wife and the husband. And I'm there to answer any questions, guide you through the process. So if you were thinking, how do we start looking for a property? I'll tell you how to do that. If you were unsure of what to do next, how to offer, we would tell you how to do that. So we do guide you through. Can you please explain how people use loans to cover the mortgage? I'm not really sure what this question means, to be honest, or how to answer. So if you're talking about using a loan to pay the mortgage payment, again, it's not something you'd want to do, or not something that's really possible. What's the advantage of buying a home in your name, or a company, or a trust? So very importantly, if you are getting a mortgage for a property to live in, you can't, for most people, buy it under a company name or a trust name. It's just not possible for most people. If you were to buy an investment property, it is then possible to potentially put it in a company or a trust if you're going to rent that property out. So it's a buy to let. The advantage is it's mainly tax purposes and building your portfolio of properties, basically. I won't talk too much about the tax advantages, by the way, because I'm not a registered and qualified tax advisor. Is 627 a good credit score to get a mortgage? It seems fine, but the only real honest answer is it depends what credit profile platform you're using. Because 627 is really, really good on some, and on others it's fair or good, but it seems fine, yeah. If you live in social housing, can you buy an investment property? So yeah, I mean, it can be possible to buy a buy-to-let property. I think it's really a better question to ask. Obviously, government and things like that, of whether that would cause a problem for your social housing. But I presume you can buy an investment property. Probably best to check first so you don't cause yourself any issues. What happens if I leave the city? I bought the property after, say, 3 years to another city. I bought the property after 3 years to another city. So are you saying if you bought a property outside, do you have a better interpretation of that question, Tochi?
If I leave the city I bought the property after, say, 3 years to another city, what happens?
Okay, I think he's meaning if he buys a property and leaves leaves later. So you could rent the property out. That is always an option, or you could sell it. So it depends what you want to do. Some people would sell that property and then go buy another one. Some might rent that property out. You would need to get consent to let from that lender and then buy another one. But there are multiple options. Can you buy buy-to-let without owning a residential? Yes, you can. What about solo buying? Yeah, so I think we've answered it a couple of times. It's possible, you can do it. Of course, you might have less in income, so it's more difficult, but it's possible. I'm a support worker. I earn £33,000 to £35,000 per year. How can I apply for my first home? I'm 25 years old. Nice. So that's really good if you'd be able to do it at 25, and it is possible. Again, it will depend on the area that you live in, because the maximum mortgage is going to be somewhere in the region of £145,000 to £160,000 that you'd probably get. Again, it will depend on some other factors and commitments. If you want to apply and you've got a deposit together of 5 or 10%, definitely worthwhile reaching out, so then we can discuss things further.
Shire, it's in the description. Just click on the description of this video and you have all the details.
Great. What is your fee? Good question. So we do charge a fee for our services, and this is quite a common question because there are fee-free mortgage advisors out there. So what I always say is we're not the cheapest, but we are really, really good at what we do, right? So the reason we charge a fee is because it allows us to spend the right amount of time with our clients to really get what's best for them. So that's not just the cheapest interest rate, but it's also the guidance through the process, making sure you understand what's going on, and importantly, making sure that you're not making any costly mistakes. So the fee that we currently charge for our service is £495, but you don't pay anything up front. You actually only pay that later on in the process towards the end. How do I find a house to buy? Rightmove, Tochi mentioned Rightmove, Zoopla, very good places to have a look. Online, so you can just put in your postcode, search criteria. That's the easiest way of doing it.
Yeah, you can even check out if you see a development in your area, you can walk in there and just speak to them in their office, so.
Yeah. Do you advise on starting Airbnb, and can a skilled worker start Airbnb? I don't advise on investment strategies, just to answer that one like that. Again, to do with your visa, I wouldn't really be able to comment on your permissions of what you can and can't do with that. So unfortunately, I'm not the best person to ask. As a first-time buyer, what is a good deposit to have? So 5% is fine. It's possible. 10% is much better. It will get you good interest rates. So I'd say aim for 10% of the property value. Which is better to buy? A residential home, buying in your name, or buying limited company name? It's only possible to do if you're using a mortgage for it. It's only possible to do it in your own name.
Okay, and that's all the questions we have. Guys, do you have, we have another one.
No, the last one. There you go. Thank you, Abby. Less than £500 fee is very fair. Wow. The reason it is fair is because we want to be fair. We want to give people the amazing service that they deserve and not charge loads and loads for it. So thank you, and I agree. It's contributing in lifetime ISA great, but yes, is contributing in lifetime ISA great for buying own home? Yes, yeah, it is. Just very importantly, from the date that you open it and put money into it, you have to have had it open for 12 months before you can actually use it for your deposit. So that's something to be careful of. But yeah, it's a really good thing to use. You can only use it for a property value up to £450,000. Minimum deposit required for a buy-to-let property, 20% is the absolute minimum, but for most people and lenders, it's 25%. Thank you, Samuel. Very much appreciated.
So Great. Is that all we have for today?
One more. I have around...
another one.
That's how the lives work. I've done lives on TikTok, and you can just keep going, like probably till 3 a.m, I'm sure. So I have 900 credit score. What advantage do I have if I want to buy first house for my wife? It's really, really helpful. Like, having a good credit score means that we're not going to run into issues with kind of different lenders. So we'll be able to go to the cheapest possible lender. There is another one. So, is it advisable to use the developer's mortgage advisor? In my opinion, as an independent advisor, which means that we don't work directly with developers and we only work like with and for the client, in my opinion, no. A lot of our clients, unfortunately, are people that have spoken to a developer, gone with the developer's advisor, been declined on mortgages, and then they go to TikTok or Instagram, they go researching, and they come across us, and then we're able to get them the mortgage. If you read our Trustpilot reviews, you'll read that exact story. So it's a lot easier to skip that step and work with someone that knows exactly what they're doing, especially if you're in the UK on a visa. Does your company have a scheme to save up for first deposit, like Tochi shared a scheme for their first property? So it wouldn't be my company, but in terms of government schemes, really the best things you can do if you are on a visa in the UK would be the lower deposit, so like the 5% deposit. If you've got indefinite leave to remain, there are a couple of lenders that can do less deposit than that. One lender does no deposit, another does £5,000 deposit. So those would be the best. It's not really something to save up. Lifetime ISA can be really good for that someone mentioned before.
Yeah, I think these are government schemes, not like mortgage advisor schemes. So yeah.
Great.
That's all.
Okay. Thank you very much, Tochi.
Today. Guys, do you have any more question you have for Ripley before we go? Please, if you're here and you have a question you want to get off your chest, please ask.
Is it true that new builds depreciate faster, so not advisable to go for? It's difficult to say because I've never actually looked at the data, but what I can say is from my clients in the past that have bought new build property and then we come around to remortgage later, potentially the values have more so stayed still versus increasing. So I think the best thing to compare it to is where, let's say you're buying a new car, the moment you drive it off the forecourt, it's worth less or it's not worth more, for example, whereas older cars would hold their value better. Again, all property seems to be a good investment, but it's very difficult to say on a countrywide scale. I can only speak in my own experience. And also it's new, right? So you're not going to have to pay for work to be done to it as fast as you would an old build. So there's pros and cons. What is the name of your company, I presume you mean? Hopefully it says it on the screen, I'm not sure, but I think it takes it off when the questions are there. So it's First Time Finance. So if you search that anywhere, Google, we should come up. I want to start the process of a mortgage. Feel free to reach out. So you can use the link that Tochi's put in the description. If you've just got a question first, again, you can reach out to me first. Which banks or money lenders accept 5% deposit from a skilled worker visa for mortgage? There are multiple. Again, it depends on your circumstances. There's different lenders. I could sit here and list them, but honestly, I don't think it's much help because I can say 3 different lenders and you might not have access to any of them. So it'll probably do more harm than good. But there are lenders that it's possible to do it with. Just joining now, please. What's the name of your company? I presume. First Time Finance. So have a look us up. You can see it on the screen there. My name is Ripley Salguero as well, so that will come up. We're getting more questions now, Tochi. Please, I've had bad credit due to financial mistakes. I'm 50, but I want to own my own home. Salary's about 23,000. So it is possible. It would depend on what your credit profile looks like. So I'd say feel free to reach out to me. So it's probably better for that one, instead of booking a call in, either reaching out, whether my email's there, my Instagram, reach out. We can have a chat and we can have a look at your credit report and we'll see where to go.
It's visa sponsorship job. Matthew,
No,
is it a question or I don't know.
it is visa sponsorship jobs. Not sure. No, I see. I think he's asking, is this about visa sponsorship jobs? If that's the question, no, it's about visa mortgages. Most new buildings have a 50-year guarantee. Throw more light on it. That would be the first that yeah, maybe a guarantee. So what I was saying earlier was a 10-year warranty, which is like an external company that provides that. So I presume a guarantee would be from the developer themselves, which is interesting and helpful. Is buying your own home or renting better? I see different views and it's confusing. To speak generally, like I really do believe that generally buying your first home is far better than renting. I explained at the beginning that I did a comparison of if you were renting for 30 years, if you bought and then 30 years later, ultimately what renting ends in is paying rent. You will just forever have to pay rent. What owning your own home ends in is not having to pay anything for the property that you live in apart from bills. I think that is far better. Building up, and then you think about building up equity, property price increases. There are lots of reasons to buy.
Personally, I don't even understand. Why would anybody think renting a house is
No,
better than having your own home? Like,
yeah. Also, like I speak to a lot of clients that have been moved around a lot by renting. So if you like where you live, you want to have your own home for you and your family, the only way of doing that is by owning it, because the landlord could just say, oh, I want to sell this property now, so then you've got to move. So for stability, even much better to own.
how do you build wealth if you keep renting?
Yeah, exactly. You don't. For a second property, would you advise buying from a company or buying from one of the couples whose name was not first? This depends on personal circumstances. It's actually a very good question. Buying from a company has different benefits. It will depend on your longer term goals and plans as well. If you're planning on buying more properties, I'm sure an accountant would tell you it's probably better to buy in a company name. I do get the rationale for buying in one of them, but yeah, it's difficult. I would seek advice on your personal situation on that, to be honest. Can you rent as a first time buyer? I see what you mean. Can you rent the property out? Yes, you can. You can buy your first property as a buy to let. Again, you need 20 or 25% deposit. Yeah. Can you arrange a mortgage for us? That is what I do every single day of my life. So I would love to. Tochi's put the link in my details below. So if you reach out on there, then I'm happy to help.
Now the work and they do be that. Did you understand what I just said?
No, it's something to do with it. That's what we do for work.
Yeah. It's like a Nigerian.
It's getting better.
Yeah.
Does it mean that I can get a lower deposit after I've gotten ILR? Not necessarily. You would because when you're on a visa, you can use a 5% deposit, but you might get a slightly lower interest rate with a 5% deposit. If you've got a 10% deposit, the interest rates are basically the same. And also, if you have to wait 3 to 5 years to get indefinite leave to remain, or even 2 years, you don't know where things are going to be at that time. It's 2 more years of renting, etc.
I don't know why I laughed when I saw this question.
How to get money to refurbish a whole building you just bought? Yeah, it depends. There's loads of ways. Like potentially, if there's enough equity in the property, you can pull more money out of it through a mortgage. I know some people will use personal loans and things like that. I would avoid over leveraging yourself too much, though. Just be careful. Obviously, if you've got a mortgage, then take out more in lending. You can very quickly hit a position where you've got a lot to pay per month. So just be careful. What is your Instagram handle, and what do you recommend to buy? Home, not flat. Instagram handle is Ripley Salguero. If you just type that in, it will come up on there. If you type first time financing, I should probably come up as well. Do I recommend to buy a house or flat? Again, depends on personal situation. Houses are great. I prefer houses. I actually live in a flat because of where I live. I live in London. It's very, very expensive, so I can't afford a house. But if you live outside London, you might want a house. It's good you advise no developers brokers. I earned 54k, 3 kids, partner lives abroad, so can't buy with him. They say, oh, I see. Yeah, I want to buy a 3 to 4 bed house. They suggest 20% plus deposit. I've given up. Feel free to reach out. Obviously, it does depend on your affordability and what kind of property you want to buy, but definitely reach out, and I'm happy to have a chat and see what we might be able to do. It's very common this happens, by the way, really common, because they will try the 2 cheapest lenders and easiest to use lenders in the market. If it doesn't work with them, they'll just go, oh, it doesn't work, and they'll move on to the next client that the developer brings to them, whereas we work independently for you. Is it possible to refinance my mortgage with a new lender after 5 years? Will that guarantee a better interest? It's possible to do so. It won't guarantee a better interest rate. It's much better to remortgage than to not remortgage. If you don't remortgage, your interest rate will go on to a high variable rate. So definitely remortgage. If I have 10k savings, can I get a mortgage including all other expenses and services? It depends on the property value you want to buy. If you're buying a £200,000 property, that could be a 5% deposit, but then you would need £2,000 to £3,000 for the other fees in the process on top. So it depends what property value. Is age a hindrance?
Sorry. If I'm sorry. If I'm to add, I think you should just try and make it up to 15k and see what you can get with that.
Also, might mention as well that some new build developers offer 5% deposit incentives, which quite a lot of our clients do use. So if you've only got, let's say you're buying for £300,000, you've got 15k, the developer will sometimes match that and put in the other 15k, which gets better interest rates from the lenders. Better spelling my Instagram. I'm presuming you're going to put my Instagram in the, or it is below. I don't know how you're doing it, Tochi. Can I join? Oh, no, it doesn't let me.
Okay.
Just, there you go. Cool. Is age a hindrance? Yeah, it's possible to buy when you're 47 years old. It's completely fine. I've got loads of clients that are. It's not really a hindrance. It can reduce affordability a little bit, but it's completely fine. So how much can one have to buy? It completely depends on your income and deposit mainly, also visa status and credit profile, but mainly your deposit and income. Yes, possible to buy. We did discuss that earlier. So I think Tochi said this will stay on YouTube, so it might be worth watching this back through because I've answered that a couple of times. But yeah, it is possible. Better to spell my Instagram handle. I've tried to do it on a chat, but it wants me to log into YouTube on it. So Tochi, maybe you want to put that.
It's in the description. Just click on the description. You will see it. His Instagram handle is his name, and it's in the description of this video. Just click on it right now, and you will get it. His number, email, everything is there. Okay.
It's my Spanish surname causing problems.
What are the incentives being first time buyer?
Yeah, so stamp duty is less, which is the tax that you pay when you buy a property. New build developers sometimes give incentives for first-time buyers. There are sometimes specific mortgage products. You can access government schemes like shared ownership. If you live in Wales, Help to Buy. So there's different things. Is it better to pay back your loan on time, seeing that the more you pay doesn't really... I see what you're saying. The more that you pay really does affect the interest that you pay, by the way. So I think the statement you're making there is incorrect. Just to be really clear to everyone else, you can save so much money by making overpayments. Like, I'll give you an example just to make this quick. If you had a £200,000 mortgage and you were paying it over, let's say, 30 years, and your interest rate was 4.75%, to use that again, and you overpaid £200 every month on top of your normal payments, you would save over that mortgage term over £56,000 in interest alone that would have gone to the bank. And that's clearing the mortgage 8 years, almost 9 years earlier. So making overpayments, even if it's just a small bit each month, can really, really help.
Welcome. Thank you.
20% minimum, but for most lenders, 25% deposit for a buy-to-let. if we have £10,000 or £8,000, are we good to go? Yeah, it depends on the property value that you're looking to buy. Again, it varies so much depending on what property value, what's your income, etc. Yeah, it depends. I mean, £300 isn't a huge amount, so it depends if it's really contributing towards your deposit or not. Really, to be honest, if it's just one person sending you £300, it would be fine, I'm sure. No, you can't use the credit card as deposit, and it's not a good idea anyway. I did say, I obviously mentioned earlier, just because of how much interest and stuff you'd pay. Thank you. I'm glad it was a good timing.
Thank you.
It depends on the area that you're looking to buy. So I think, as Tochi mentioned earlier, if you go on Rightmove, have a little look at properties in your area, see what you could do. Is the property £150,000? Is the property £300,000? You just need to see how much that is and whether the 15k could stretch for that.
Yeah, so right now, after this video, you can just pick up your phone, houses for sale in my area, and you will see that they'll all come up. And you can go through it and see the one that suits you or the one that meets what you're looking for. You see the prices and then check 5% of that amount, 10% of that amount, and it's quite easy.
What is the minimum mortgage repayment term? Minimum is as low as it can be affordable, so it could be as low as 5 years, but I'd say the minimum normal mortgage term would be about 25 years, 20 years sometimes, and they go all the way up to 40 years depending on your age. No, so my Instagram is Ripley Salguero, so I don't know if it's first time finance. Let me just have a look, because I've changed my handle at some point, because the company, we run the Instagram off my page, so that's why. So let me see. So 6 followers is not my page, no. So my handle, yeah, it's just Ripley Salguero. It's just my name. I am 25. I was thinking about getting into Moneybox. Haven't got anything saved for a deposit. Yes, it's a good thing to use, but you can't use it for your deposit until your money's been in there for at least 12 months from when you first put something in there. Can you sell your car? Yes, yeah, it can be. As long as you can prove where the money's come from, that's fine. Can couples buy a home and use first time buyer differently and not use it on buy-to-let business? If you mean using your first time buyer allowance for stamp duty, yes, it's possible to do that. I get people asking that quite often. If you're married, though, you need to be careful around that due to stamp duty laws and tax laws due to marriage. I, again, can't touch too much on that just because I'm not a tax advisor, but if you Google around marriage and stamp duty, it will tell you. Can I buy a mortgage? Yeah, you definitely can. It's completely possible to do so. It's all about having deposit and an income. I'm already 40, my partner is 47. Yeah, 20% deposit is really good. So yeah, you get some good interest rates, a bit better than using a 10% deposit. I have a lifetime account, ISA account, but he doesn't. Yeah, that's fine. You don't both need a lifetime ISA. So kind of friend gift to you. For most lenders, and specifically if you're in the UK on a visa, there is only one lender that can potentially do that, and the interest rates are more expensive. So not really. Ideally not. Immediate family can, so sisters, parents, etc. So they'll be talking about leasehold properties. Actually, no, I think they're either talking about two things: either leasehold properties, where that's not true, you do own the property, there's just a lease agreement, and as long as the lease is long enough, you're fine. If they're talking, I've heard people say when you get a mortgage, you don't really own the property because the bank has got a loan of 90% of the property value. You own the property. The bank does not own the property. The bank has a legal charge secured against your property. It's a literal contract that says you owe them that money. That's it. So no, if you get a mortgage, you buy a property, you own the property. You just owe the bank money.
Whose name is in the land registry? Is it your name or the bank's name?
Thanks. Yeah. There we go.
Yeah.
It's your name.
It's your property, so don't listen to anybody. It's
It
your
frustrates
property.
me when I see that. What was thinking of 5 years save money box, but at that time it'd be 30. 30 is really young still. But average age of a first time buyer in the UK is 34 now. And there's no shame in buying a property even older than that, right? It matters just getting on the ladder when you're ready. Very good. I don't want a mortgage more than 10 years. Repayment terms, so it has to build up a good. Yeah, so that's possible. It's important to mention if you're using a shorter mortgage term, the affordability, the maximum amount you can borrow will be lower because the monthly payments are a lot higher. Sometimes what we can do though is use a longer mortgage term and then we'll just talk about making overpayments. So if you set those up, you can then pay it back in 10 years. Can myself and my daughter buy a house as joint partners? Yes, yeah, you can. That is possible. How can you come in if the developer has their own mortgage advisor? Well, the developer can't force you to use their mortgage advisor. So it's actually illegal. It's against the law for anyone to force you to use a third party. So that means mortgage brokers and solicitors, nobody can force you to. So if a developer is saying, oh, you have to use our mortgage advisor or being very forceful and you don't want to, and you wanted to work with us, for example, I would just get in touch with the developer and just say, I can let them know and they'll be completely fine with it. Can you and your partner put the deposit together and get a mortgage in the lady's name? It depends if you're married or not. If you're not married, again, it's a gift. It essentially counts as a gift from a non-family member, so it's quite difficult. If you're married, it's possible, but if you're going to live in the property and gift them the money, it's a bit messy in legal terms. So ideally not. I would avoid doing that. Which bank has favourable interest rates for someone on a skilled worker visa? I mean, there are plenty of different lending options. So we discussed this earlier. I'd probably be doing you a disservice to say, here's the cheapest lenders, go out and get them, because you could end up getting yourself into all sorts of harm and going to the wrong places, because it depends on lots of factors. At age 40 and 47, can we get a low interest rate and 10% deposit? Yeah, it's possible to do so. Exactly, even if you're in the UK on a visa. Can a carer with BRP get a mortgage easily based on a salary? Yeah, I would say a lot of our clients are either care workers, support workers, etc. So yeah, you definitely can, and I've got loads and loads of clients that have already done it. How long does it take to complete the mortgage process? Well, from start to finish of buying a house, once you have your offer accepted, I'd say it takes three months, sometimes a bit longer. The mortgage only takes a couple of weeks. Where's your mortgage? Okay. What about if I take or buy a property on? Can you explain that, please? I don't know. I don't know what that is. Do you know what that is, Tochi? No. Okay. Where is your office based, or do you only work from Instagram? Yeah. So this room that I live in here is Instagram. No. So we don't have a physical office that you can come and visit. So we are an online remote business. I have 2 staff members that work for me who both work remotely as well. I'm based in London personally, but yeah, we work across the whole country. So it doesn't matter where you live. We would have a Zoom call, so we'd meet each other online and talk through everything. How long does one need to be in the UK to be eligible? Really good question. So it can be as little as 6 months, but for most people, as long as you've been here at least 12 months, it's completely fine. If anyone wants to buy a house, is it compulsory to see an advisor first? Not compulsory, but most estate agents won't allow you to even view a property, let alone put an offer on it without having an agreement in principle. And also, let's think about your best interest. You want to make sure that you can actually get the mortgage before you spend your time viewing properties, putting offers forward, right? So it's a good idea for you. Am I a licensed broker? Yes. So we're regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. So yes, we are.
Okay, I think that's all questions for today.
Yeah. First time finance details are in the, well, you can see it here. My name's Ripley Salguero, and details are in the box below. We specialize, for everyone that's joined a bit later, we specialize in helping people that have moved over to the UK to buy their first home here, and also obviously can help with investments and things like that. So if you need any help, we'd love to. And obviously I appreciate everyone that's joined and asked questions, and you, Tochi, as well.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ripley, for coming to do this. We appreciate you. Thank you, everyone, for joining. For everyone that is just coming, don't worry, this video is always going to be here. You can just watch right now and get all the answers you need. And also reach out to him. The details are in the description, okay? I don't have an Instagram. Can I email you? Yes, his email, his contact, his number, everything. The link to reach out is in the description of this video, okay? Okay, let's just take this final question, and this is going to be the last.
Okay.
We've had enough today.
Okay, I'm answering the one above as well. Scotland, yes, we do. And now, now I'll do this. If I buy a house and after a few years something happens and the bank or lender cannot take can they take the property away from you? Yeah. So if you didn't pay your mortgage for a long period of time, they would then start to basically want their money back, and the only way of doing that is by selling the property. But as long as you're paying the monthly payments, no. But yeah. Thank you, everyone. I see some thank yous in the chat. Do you sleep here?
I wish, to be honest, but I've got to go. Okay.
Yeah, and I don't think my voice is that relaxing either.
Yeah, we've been here for over an hour. So
yeah, almost an hour and a half. So wow.
Yeah.
Very good. An hour and 15.
Okay, guys. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you, Ripley, for coming. This was quite insightful. I'm sure everyone got value from this. So thank you, guys. We'll try and do this as often as we can, just so that you know how you can get your own property. Because a lot of questions, because I remember when I even said I bought my house in less than 2 years, somebody was arguing with me. It's a lie. You have to be
lie.
And I'm like, I'm already living in the house and I'm not yet a British, citizen. They say it's not true, so people just believe what they want to believe and it's not real. They just don't know where they get that assumptions from or whatever, but so that's why I said, let me bring a professional so you can hear directly from the horse's mouth. And I'm glad we did this today. Hopefully we'll do for Instagram people sometime soon.
Yeah.
And we can come back here again sometime soon. So just continue to contact him and ask him all the questions you have. Discuss your situation, your circumstance with him, and he would guide you from there. Okay? Yeah, just watch the video. It's going to be here on YouTube. It's not going anywhere. So thank you so much, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Anything finally before we go, Ripley?
Yeah, I was just going to say, if I can leave one message, it is just to say it is possible to do it, and don't let people or online tell you can't. There are things you need to pass, but it's definitely possible. So it's very important to look into it further. So do reach out. Details are below, aren't they, Tochi? And thank you, everyone. Very nice to have you.
Matter. My Instagram handle is Tochi_Esther1. So Tochi Esther1 on Instagram. Yeah, so if you've not followed me on Instagram, I think this is the right time for you to. It's Tochi_Esther1. All right, thank you, guys. Good night. Thank you, Ripley. See you soon.
Thanks,
Hopefully we'll see you some other time. Yeah.
I'm sure we will.
Thank you.
Take care. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much.